A few weeks ago, I went camping in the Irish countryside. I'm 32, and I thought it would be a good idea to escape the city for a while. After a rough breakup, I wanted peace and quiet. I chose a secluded spot in County Kerry, near a lake and surrounded by tall oak trees. I thought it would be perfect. The first night, I set up my tent. As darkness fell, I felt an unusual chill in the air. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just cold. Then I heard it laughter. It echoed through the trees, far away. I convinced myself it was other campers. I settled into my sleeping bag, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next day, I woke up to find footprints outside my tent. They led away into the woods but then disappeared. That made me uneasy, but I ignored it. I tried to enjoy my time in nature. Later, I heard rustling in the bushes. My skin crawled a little. I thought maybe it was just a rabbit. On the third night, things took a turn. A fellow camper, a man who had been nearby, went missing. Everyone freaked out. I could hear people whispering about it. I felt my heart race every time I heard a twig snap. They started telling ghost stories about the area. It made me think I'd made a huge mistake coming here, that I wanted to leave. I packed my things, but I couldn't bring myself to drive away. I felt glued to the spot. That evening, I walked away from my camp to clear my head. I followed a narrow path deeper into the woods. The trees blocked the light from the setting sun. Then I heard the laughter again. It was louder, echoing around me. I froze. I turned to head back to camp, but then I saw him, a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the trees, staring straight at me. My heart dropped. I called out, but my voice felt weak. I backed up, realizing I was alone. Panic hit me hard. I turned and stumbled back toward my camp, but my legs felt heavy. As I ran, I turned again, hoping it was just my imagination. But the figure was still there, unmoving, just watching. I never knew who he was. Something about his stillness felt wrong. I started to run faster, feeling something in the air behind me. I just wanted to get to safety. Then I heard it again, laughter, but this time it was right behind me. I didn't dare look back. I could feel eyes on me from the gloom. I reached my tent, fumbled for the zipper, and crawled inside. I sat, panting, listening to the night. That's when it hit me, I was all alone. I had no cell service. The laughter faded into the darkness, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, waiting. I needed to leave, but my feet wouldn't move. I was stuck, lost somewhere between fear and reality. Sleep did not come easy after that. I lay in my sleeping bag, listening to the creaking of the tent fabric and the distant sounds of the night. Every rustle outside made my heart race again. I hugged the flashlight tightly, praying I wouldn't need it. When dawn broke, I finally felt some relief, though the memories of the previous night clung to me like a damp chill. My plan was simple: pack up and leave. I hurriedly rolled up my sleeping bag, feeling the urgency to be away from that place. But as I stepped outside, I was stopped in my tracks. The campsite was different. It wasn't just quiet, it felt eerily still. I looked around to see other tents still standing, but there was no sign of movement. A knot twisted in my stomach. I called out to the other campers, but my voice echoed back at me unanswered. Then, the distant laughter came again. It was softer, almost taunting, and sent chills down my spine. Following the sound, I moved cautiously toward the direction I believed it was coming from. Each step felt heavy, and I kept glancing around, half expecting to see that figure again. As I ventured deeper into the woods, I stumbled upon something strange. There was a small clearing, and in the center, I found half-buried camp equipment, coolers, old tents, and even a lantern that still flickered weakly. It was all so out of place, like remnants of long-forgotten travelers. My heart raced as I knelt to examine a torn backpack. Then I saw it. A small note tucked inside, yellowed and crumpled. I unfolded it with trembling fingers, my stomach tightening as I read the scribbled words. They took my friends. Don't follow the laughter. Panic washed over me as I looked around the clearing. It suddenly felt like a trap that I quickly retraced my steps back to the campsite, but I realized I didn't remember the way. Everything looked the same in the woods, and fear gripped me tighter. The laughter echoed again, closer this time, making me sprint in what I thought was the right direction. Suddenly, I heard a screech. A man jumped out from behind a tree, skin pale and eyes wild. "You have to get out of here," he shouted, and my breath caught in my throat. "They'll come for you too." Just then, the laughter exploded around me. It was no longer distant, it circled above, filling the trees and enveloping me. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. I knew I'd stumbled upon something dark and dangerous, and then everything went dark, the laughter silenced abruptly. I felt cold air sweep over me, and in that moment of dread, I braced myself against the looming unknown. I blinked my eyes open. It took a moment for my surroundings to come into focus. I was still in the woods, but now I lay on the ground, leaves poking into my skin. Panic swept through me as I shot upright. Where was the man? Had he just vanished? The silence was disturbing. No laughter. No movement. I felt disoriented but forced myself to steady my breath. I was still alone. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest. My flashlight lay a few feet away, and I quickly grabbed it, aiming the beam through the trees. The light flickered against the thick trunks, revealing nothing but the twisted branches and underbrush. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. The woods did not respond. After a moment, I took a step forward, then another, trying to find my way back to the campsite. My instincts screamed at me to run in the opposite direction, but I had no idea what lurked out there in the shadows. As I pushed my way through the brush, I stumbled again upon the clearing with the buried camp equipment. This time, I felt a chill run down my spine as I surveyed the scene. Something about it felt worse than before. I couldn't quite place it, it was as if the clearing was watching me. In the center was another object, half hidden beneath fallen leaves. I knelt beside it and uncovered an old, rusted pocket watch, broken and stopped at 12:07. My uneasiness grew. Was this one of the items left behind by the campers who had vanished? My mind raced. Then, I heard something, a low humming, barely audible against the stillness. It sent a jolt through me. It was like a lullaby, soft and haunting. I felt like I was being pulled towards the sound against my will. Fear tangled in my gut, but I couldn't turn away. Finally, I followed it slowly, carefully. The humming led me deeper into the woods. I tried to be cautious, but each step felt more heavy than the last. I glanced back, feeling the weight of the forest around me. The trees felt closer, leaning in as if listening. Suddenly, I stumbled upon another clearing, but this one was different. In the center stood a circle of rocks, like a makeshift altar, and around it were pieces of torn clothing. Each piece was stained dark, like sun-bleached fabric from long ago. I could barely breathe, the air thick with dread. Then, I noticed something glimmering within the rocks. That's when I saw it, a shard of glass or crystal. It pulsed faintly, almost alive, drawing my gaze. I reached out toward it, compelled by a force I could not understand. Before I could touch it, a crack of a branch echoed like thunder. I whipped around, the humming dissipating into silence. I couldn't shake the feeling I was no longer alone. A shadow loomed in the trees, just out of reach, watching me. "Get back!" I shouted, my voice stronger than I felt. But no answer came, only the whisper of the wind and the stifling silence of the woods. The urge to flee collided with the curiosity of what the object was and who stood watching me from the darkness. I was caught in a web of both fear and fascination. Would I make it out of this woodland alive, or was this where I would become another lost soul, like those before me? A tense silence enveloped me. The shadow lingering in the trees seemed to pulse with life, and I could barely move. My mind raced. Who, or what, was out there? There was no way I could ignore it. I had to find out or run. With a surge of adrenaline, I backpedaled, my flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. My instinct screamed at me to get away, to escape whatever was hidden amongst the trees. But as I turned to run, the humming returned, louder and more insistent. It twisted around me, enchanting yet frightening that I stopped. The broken watch lay abandoned at my feet, forgotten in my fear. Somehow, I felt tethered to the strange altar, almost as if the glimmering shard was summoning me back. I couldn't just leave without understanding. Show yourself. I yelled into the darkness, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. I felt foolish for demanding something from the unknown, but the fear of not knowing was worse. What had happened here? Why did I feel like this forest was part of something larger? A rustle in the brush made my heart race anew. The shadow inched closer, revealing a shape, a figure, almost human, cloaked in shadow. My breath caught in my throat. They didn't seem to be threatening, but I couldn't shake the oppressive feeling they brought with them. Are you lost? The voice was raspy, like gravel crunching underfoot. It sent chills up my spine. I couldn't see the person's face, but I felt their eyes boring into me. No, I was just, my voice faltered. I didn't know how to explain that I was drawn here against my will, lured by an eerie melody and a promise of truth hidden among these woods. Many come here, the figure said, stepping closer. I could finally make out long, tattered clothing, a vestige of what once belonged to who knows what. Curiosity draws them. Most never leave. I took a shaky step back, but he held out his hand as if to calm me. I don't mean you harm. What do you want? I whispered, feeling the weight of his gaze. I'm a keeper of the lost, he said, his voice echoing with an unnatural cadence. Your arrival was expected. A sense of dread washed over me as his words sank in. Expected? What did that mean? Why? What does that even mean? He pointed toward the altar. The ones before you left pieces of themselves. What you seek lies within. I could feel my heartbeat quickening. I need to know what happened here. I forced myself to step closer, drawn by my desire for answers but repulsed by the danger. There's a price, he replied, the corner of his mouth twisting in what might have been a smile. All truths come with a cost, the question is whether you're willing to pay. As his eyes glinted in the light, I spotted something behind him, a dark silhouette creeping along the trees, merging with the shadows. I felt dread ripple through me. Before I could say anything, the ground trembled and everything went dark. The world slipped from my grasp, and dread gripped my chest. I was no longer sure where I stood. I could hear them, the whispers grew louder, as if the forest was alive with anticipation that I was about to discover what lay in the heart of this haunted place. Whatever truth awaited me, I was closer than ever. But at what cost? When the darkness faded, I found myself not where I had been, but in a clearing, the trees forming a barrier around me like spectators at a haunting show. My heart pounded as I looked around, half expecting the cloaked figure to be gone, but he was right in front of me. Welcome to the heart of the forest, he said, his eyes glimmering like distant stars. He gestured with his hand palm up, and suddenly, I saw them. 5 scattered remnants lay on the ground, each marked with a glint of silver in the muted light. They looked like shards, strange and intricate, but still glowing faintly. What are those? I asked, my voice trembling. Fragments of truth, he said, his tone almost reverent. Each one belongs to a life, a story untold. The forest breathes them in, feeding off their essence. Panic surged through me. I stepped back, but he kept his gaze steady on me. If you want answers, you must reach out, connect with them. Only then will you understand why you were drawn here. Why would I want to do that? I took another step back, desperately searching for an escape route. Because you are not just a visitor, are you? His voice turned sharper, edged with something darker. You're part of this. The forest knows your desires. I came to find out what happened to those men, I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. Their stories could help others help. Or condemn. He laughed lowly, and it felt like the wind shifted around us. Be careful what you wish to uncover. Torn between fear and curiosity, I moved closer to the nearest fragment. The moment my fingers brushed against its cool surface, a sensation surged through me. Images flooded my mind, flashing scenes of laughter around a fire, but then a shadow rising behind them, an unrelenting darkness that pulled one man away until he was lost to the trees. Gasping, I pulled my hand back, arranging my thoughts amid the chaos. I was shaken, all of this was so surreal. What happened? What's out there? A flicker of sorrow crossed his face. That darkness is something primordial. It takes, it twists, and those in its path never return. Then why are you here? I asked, suddenly realizing he had become part of this web too. I am bound to this forest, tasked with carrying the stories of the lost, he said with a sigh, his voice breaking slightly. And what do I need to do with all of this? I felt the weight of the pieces in front of me. What if uncovering the truth meant unlocking something I couldn't control? You must choose, he said, his words echoing. Leave this place unaltered, or accept your fate and learn what it means to carry the weight of their stories. Suddenly, the air turned cold, and the whispers morphed into cries. I felt a rush of unease, as if the forest itself demanded an answer. The ground shook again, stronger this time, and all 5 fragments began to pulse with light, casting eerie shadows around us. Then, I saw something moving in the periphery. Dark figures glided silently towards the clearing. They were far from human. I had to decide. Would I retrieve the secrets of the dead or flee before I became one of them? The urgency wrapped around me, and I sensed time running short. Before I could think, the shadows closed in. I faced the figure, my heart racing, and the truth of the forest awaited my choice. The shadows moved closer, their forms shifting and swirling like a dark mist. Fear clawed at my throat, and I clenched my fists, resisting the instinct to run. The cloaked figure only watched, an unsettling calm on his face, as if this were merely another performance for him. With every second, the pulsing light from the fragments intensified, illuminating faces that seemed to flicker within the shadows. They looked familiar, perhaps men that had been part of the camping trip I was investigating. Each one wore an expression of anguish that sent chills down my spine. What do you want from me? I shouted, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay brave. The cloaked figure stepped forward, his hand reaching out toward the shadows. They are here to remind you of what was lost. They will not ease your path, but they will show you the truth. You must make a choice: immerse yourself in their stories or deny their plight and accept the burden that follows. He paused, and I felt the darkness drawing closer, an unseen force pressing against my skin. I turned my gaze back to the shards, each one whispering an untold tale. Was I willing to confront what had happened, even if it meant facing the darkness? Time is running out, he urged, his tone now stern. Make your choice. I felt the ground tremble beneath me, rattling my resolve. My instincts screamed for me to back away, to flee into the comfort of the known world. Yet the faces in the shadows pulled at something deep within me, a need to understand their fate. Okay, I finally said, surprising myself. I'll listen to their stories. But I need to know how to stop this darkness. The moment I spoke, the air shifted again. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, and the shadows rushed towards me, a flood of darkness and light colliding. For a heartbeat, everything around me vanished. Then, scenes flashed in quick succession: campfires, laughter, and then panic. I was thrown into their last moments before the shadows claimed them. I felt their fear, their bewilderment. The darkness was not just an entity, it had form and urgency, like a predator stalking its prey. Sudden clarity hit me. This was not just an accident, it was by design. Something had led them into the forest, and now it wanted me too. I was connected to them. Somehow, their fate was entwined with mine. As the brightness enveloped me, I struggled to remember everything I had seen. The cloaked figure's voice echoed around me, softer now. To understand is to confront. You cannot run from the truth. When the brightness faded, I gasped. I was back in the clearing, but the shadows had retreated. I had a newfound determination not just to understand their stories but to confront whatever had taken them. That's when I realized I wouldn't just be uncovering their past, I would be standing against the darkness, I said aloud, steeling myself for what was to come. But then I heard a rustling from the trees behind me, and my heart dropped. Someone or something was still watching. The rustling grew louder, almost drowning out the pulse of my own heartbeat. I turned slowly, dread tightening my chest. The trees swayed, their branches whispering secrets in the wind. In the dim light, I couldn't make out a figure, but I felt the weight of eyes on me, cold and evaluating. Show yourself. My voice came out rough, shaky but demanding. I needed to regain some control. A shadow pulled away from the tree line, and finally, a figure emerged. It was a woman, her eyes wide with fear, but her stance was strong. She moved closer, almost hesitantly, as if each step was deliberate. A lit flashlight was aimed directly at my face, forcing me to squint. Are you okay? She asked, her voice tremulous. Strands of dark hair fell across her forehead, and she brushed them aside urgently. I blinked against the brightness. I'm fine. I need to know who you are. What are you doing here? I was looking for you, she stammered. I heard the stories, the campfire tales about the men who disappeared. I came to find answers. I didn't think anyone would really be here. Why didn't you come sooner? I shot back, frustration boiling up inside me. There is something dark in these woods, and I just faced it. Her eyes widened even more at my words, and I could see how real her fear was now. You felt it too? The darkness? It's been calling to me, drawing me in. I thought it was just my imagination, but your imagination. I interrupted. It's more than that. The urgency rang in my voice, the memories of the men flashing through my mind again. You need to tell me everything you know. It's not safe here. She nodded, and I watched as she struggled to find her words. I was camping here last summer when I overheard something. A group of guys talking about rituals, things they were doing in the woods. It sounded absurd, like folklore. But then her voice broke, a tremor of remembrance flickering across her features. Then they started disappearing. One by one. Rituals? I echoed, my heart racing as the pieces began to connect. What did they do? She hesitated, stepping back slightly as if the shadows around us leaned in closer, eager to listen. They thought they could harness the power of the forest. They thought they could control it. But the darkness, it turns out, it isn't something to be controlled. It just takes. A chill ran down my spine. My instincts warned me that the cloaked figure's warning hadn't been just about the men. I heard their cries, I said, thinking of the faces I had glimpsed. We need to find a way to stop it before it's too late. Before she could answer, the wind picked up, swirling leaves around us. A low thrum vibrated beneath our feet, and the shadows began to stretch out again. Run! She shouted, but I didn't want to leave. Not when this felt like a turning point. Just then, the ground trembled violently, and the very air felt charged. Whatever was hidden in the woods was awakening. I had been drawn into something far darker than I could have imagined. As I glanced back at her, my heart dropped. Her face twisted in fear, and then she disappeared into the oncoming darkness. No! I yelled, scrambling after her. But the shadows enveloped me, thick and consuming. Then everything went black. I blinked awake, the world around me fragmented. I lay flat on the ground, the cold earth beneath me sending shivers through my body. I pushed myself up, wincing as pain shot through my shoulder. Where was she? Hello? I called, my voice barely cutting through the thick air. Nothing answered. Just silence and an oppressive weight pressing down on me. I picked myself up and looked around, straining to see through the darkness. The trees loomed like sentinels, their twisted branches reaching toward the sky, and every rustle felt ominous that I took a deep breath, shaking off the panic. Focus. I had to find her. The women the only link I had to the truth. She couldn't be far. I staggered to my feet, my eyes scanning the dense shadow of the woods. It was then that I noticed something on the ground. A flashlight, its beam flickering, grasped tightly in a hand that was not mine. I knelt, trembling slightly, and reached out to pick it up. It felt warm, almost alive, and I couldn't shake the urge that it came from her that I clicked the switch. A beam of light pierced through the dark, revealing twisted roots and jagged rocks around me. I moved forward, sweeping the light in front of me. "Can you hear me?" I called out again, my voice echoing in the eerie stillness, still no response. I felt the panic rise again, but I forced it back. I had to think. If the men had disappeared here, and she knew about it, there had to be more to uncover. The possibility of others lurking nearby sent a chill down my spine. As my flashlight searched the area, I noticed a faint glow coming from deeper in the woods. I squinted, my heart racing. It flickered like a dying ember, beckoning me forward with a strange allure. I stepped cautiously, not daring to take my eyes off the light. It wasn't until I was closer that I recognized it was not just a glow, it was fire. I felt around in my pocket for the pocket knife I always carried. Just in case, when I reached the small clearing, I froze. In front of me, an old campfire pit smoldered faintly. Bits of charred wood were scattered, and the ground bore marks, deep scratches, like claw marks. They circled the pit, leading to a terrifying realization: the fire was fresh. Why would they come back here? I whispered to myself, stepping closer. That's when I saw it, something bright and round in the ashes. I crouched to inspect it, shocking silence engulfing the clearing as I gingerly brushed away the ash. My breath caught a ring, a simple silver band, engraved with archaic symbols. I recognized it from her description. She had said the men wore them during their rituals. A voice broke through my thoughts. "Don't touch it." The woman's voice, trembling but urgent. I spun around, but she wasn't there. "Where are you?" I shouted. "You need to leave now," she warned, and panic surged in me. "It's not safe." But then a movement caught my eye, dancing between the trees. Tension thickened in the air. Someone or something was watching, and I wasn't alone anymore. I grabbed the ring, shoving it into my pocket. I had to find her, but the shadows began to shift, twisting and morphing into something darker, something ready to pounce. "Not now," I muttered, my heart pounding. I turned, ready to run back into the dense woods, but it was too late. I felt countless eyes lock onto me. The darkness was drawing closer. I took a step back, then another, the ring still clutched tightly in my fist. The eyes watching me were unyielding, a cold and hollow gaze that penetrated deep into my soul. I couldn't see their owners, but I felt them, an unsettling presence that bordered on the supernatural. Then, all at once, the quiet shattered. Branches snapped underfoot, a low growl resonated through the air, and the shadows shifted violently. I spun to flee, but something blocked my path. It loomed just outside the reach of my flashlight, a dark figure unfurling itself from the trees. I couldn't make out its form, but I felt its intention. It wanted me, wanted to draw me into the darkness. My instincts kicked in. I turned and sprinted through the trees, pushing past branches that clawed at my skin. "Wait!" I called out, desperate for the woman. She had to be close, but for all I knew, she could be one of them. What if she had lured me here? My thoughts spiraled, feeding the panic swelling inside me. The ground was uneven, and every step threatened to trip me up. I flicked my flashlight around, but the beam seemed to flicker, dying like the fire I had just left. In the depths of the woods, darkness pressed against me from every direction. Then I heard it, a howl, primal and filled with hunger. It echoed, reverberating through the trees, sending chills racing down my spine. I had to keep moving. I had to find safety. Pushing through the underbrush, I stumbled into a small clearing, my feet sliding on wet leaves. In the corner, I spotted something that made my heart race again, a dilapidated cabin. It wasn't much, but at that moment, it felt like hope. I dashed toward it, the creaking structure looming larger as I got closer. The door hung ajar, torn and splintered. I peered inside, my pulse racing. No light flickered within. Rusted tools scattered across the floor hinted that no one had been here in ages. But I had no choice. I slipped inside, wincing as the wood groaned beneath me. I pressed my back against the door, holding my breath as I listened. Outside, the howl returned, closer now, echoing among the trees. I scanned the interior with my flashlight. Dust hung in the air, and tiny specks caught the light, swirling like distant stars in the gloom. Then I noticed a tattered journal perched on a small table. Curiosity piqued, I stepped closer, my fingers tingling as they brushed against the worn leather cover. Just as I was about to open it, a scratch at the door sent ice coursing through my veins. It was unmistakable, something was trying to get in. The shadow outside grew larger, darkening the space around me. I quickly snatched up the journal, flipping it open as I backed away, desperate to find something, anything that might explain what was happening and why I was being hunted. The first page revealed a symbol, one eerily similar to the ones on the ring in my pocket. I barely had time to process it when I heard the door buckle under a forceful strike. Whatever was out there wanted in. I held my breath, ready for the moment I'd be forced to fight or run again. But as I peered through the door's splintered wood, my heart dropped. The figure was now inside the light of my flashlight, and it wasn't just beastly, it wore the same ring I had found. I wasn't only running from something dark. I was running toward the mystery that had claimed the lives of those men. But were they truly dead, or something worse? The revealing shadow stepped forward, and I knew there was no escaping this encounter. I was suddenly surrounded by soft whispers, coiling around me, binding me like a twisted vine. The figure stood inside the cabin, looming in the dim light, its form shifting unnaturally as if caught between two worlds. I stumbled back against the wall, clutching the journal in a white-knuckled grip, heart hammering in my chest. There was no way it could be real, yet I couldn't deny the fear that gripped me. "Please," I croaked out. "I'm not here to harm anyone." The words felt weak against the enormity of what stared back at me. The shadow tilted its head, and I noticed a faint glimmer emanating from the ring on its finger, a promise of past lives intertwined with the dark fabric of the woods. It stepped closer, and I instinctively extended the journal, hoping the knowledge it contained would serve as some barrier. "Did you find it?" A voice murmured from the figure, raspy like the torn pages I now clutched. "Did you uncover the truth? It's not safe here." I blurted, urgency spilling from my lips. "You need to leave. That darkness, it's hunting you." The figure paused, a flicker of something fear crossing its features. "It knows I'm here," it replied, its tone almost regretful. "It's part of us now." A creeping chill filled the cabin, and I felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. I remembered the stories, the rituals, the laughter echoing through the trees, the men drawn into the forest. "You're one of them," I gasped. "You were taken." "It's true," it conceded, a hint of despair woven into its words. "But we were never lost. We chose this. We thought we could control the forest, bend its will." The shadow flickered, revealing glimpses of faces around the fire, forgotten by time. "Instead, we sealed our fates." "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping forward despite my racing heart. My instincts told me to run, but my mind craved understanding. "How do we stop it?" "Understanding has never been enough," the figure replied, and the air thickened around us. "Now it's far too late for that. You came seeking the truth. In that moment, the ring on my finger pulsed as if echoing that deep connection to the essence surrounding us. The journal in my grip, pages filled with torn voices and fading hope, felt like a responsibility, a pact I never intended to forge. I could hear the low rumble outside as the shadows swelled, unrelenting. "What's out there?" I demanded, dread clutching my gut. "What will happen if I stay?" The figure stepped into the light, and recognition hit me, no longer simply a shadow, but a man, his features sharp and defined, burdened by unseen chains. "It's what was taken." Our laughter, joy turned to sorrow. "You must make a choice again." But as if summoned by his words, the wind outside screamed anew, howling like a ravenous beast. The walls trembled and splintered, and darkness surged in from the corners, consuming the room. I could sense her, she was close, a faint calling, perhaps still searching for me among the twisted trees. "Fate isn't something we can alter, but you can escape it," the figure urged, desperation lacing his voice. "Enter the darkness willingly and you may break the cycle." "What do you mean?" My voice trembled, realizing the implications in his words. "For those lost, the chance remains a chance to live on, to dwell in the stories of the forest. They become part of the fabric we once sought to control. You must choose, will you follow or flee?" The shadows twisted, and the pulsating darkness danced closer, eager to pull me into its void. My heart raced, my thoughts spun in chaos. I had come seeking answers, the truth of what might have happened to those camping men, unearthing long-buried histories. But I was now confronted with the weight of their sacrifice that I turned the ring on my finger, biting back the dread that tightened its grip. "If I choose to stay, what will become of me?" "Only you can determine the cost." He stepped back, slowly engulfing himself in darkness, his features slipping into a haze. "Learn from both the light and shadow. You have the choice to wield their fate or make your own escape." I felt trapped, drowning in the weight of his words, gaze lingering on the doorway where the tendrils of darkness flickered menacingly. I couldn't run forever, not from the shadows, not from the choices I had made in my journey. But I also could not let fear dictate my conclusion. With one last glance at the flickering light surrounding the figure, I made my choice. I clutched the journal to my chest, feeling the weight of stories untold, and took a step toward the door, but once I crossed that threshold, the air thickened again, plunging bright clarity into dim chaos. As I turned back, I saw a sliver of recognition flash across the man's face, not of loss, but of hope. The shadows surged behind me, I could feel their energy awaken. Panic surged again, and yet the choice was mine. So, I ran forward, battling shadows and laughter that intertwined, leaving behind a tether in the chaos. Outside, the world was different, eerily still, yet brimmed with the promise of the unknown. I would be faced with blurred lines, all too uncertain of what waited beyond, and maybe, just maybe, that was the point that I wandered deeper into the woods, seeking answers with each step. The eerie silence pushed around me, and the stories echoed in my mind, more unspoken than before. I was not alone. Shadows lingered, watching me, guiding me, yet filled with their own haunting enigmas. I had escaped at least, for now, but the woods still held many secrets, and truth be told, I might never fully understand what had drawn me there in the first place. Whether real or illusion, the darkness thrummed through my veins, and as I moved forward, I knew it was only just the beginning of unveiling the stories yet to unfold. Each step pulled me deeper into the mystery, as the laughter faded to a whisper in the distance, leaving me with questions that would linger, unanswered and unresolved. For the forest was alive, and I was but a part of its ongoing tale.